online, people who are online, can you guys unmute and just see if you can hear us properly or not? Can somebody that was online just unmute and tell us if they can hear?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay, thank you. I can always depend on you.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. I guess before we get started for today's session, it would be good to kind of hear from you guys. Have you guys ever heard of the term growth hacking before? And if you have, what do you know about it?
I've heard about it. I saw it on YouTube actually.
Okay.
And I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's something that quickly grows your business. That's what I know so far.
That's a good answer. Any other kind of comments or? Okay. I'll go through that now. But basically, today's session, you can loosely say that it's split into two kind of segments or two main parts to the session. The first part is going to look at theoretical, so it's a little bit boring, but you have to listen to it because I'm making you. And then the second part of it is a little bit more interesting because it talks about use cases of how you can use these theoretical kind of examples in a real life kind of scenario, right? So what does that mean and so on. I want to keep this super kind of interactive, and this is why I've asked you guys to come closer and so on. Even for the guys that are online, feel free to kind of unmute yourself and just stop me whenever you have a question, if there's something that you don't understand. The reason why I like to do this session, even though it might not necessarily be 100% exactly what you guys are doing right now, is that it gives you a good idea of what startups are kind of thinking about, what they're looking at, and so on. And at the end, all of these big banks and the financial institutions and so on, they all are trying to be more like startups because of the way that startups interact with their customers. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. So to start off with, we have to get the clicker to work. So what is growth hacking? So growth hacking is a marketing methodology, right, that seeks to acquire customers in the most efficient way possible, leveraging data and alternative outreach channels. So what does that mean? There's three highlighted kind of words here. So the first part is acquiring customers. So what do we mean by acquiring customers?
Gaining new potential customers.
Gaining customers. So in NBB's case, what does that mean?
Customers from other banks.
Okay, getting customers from other banks and then doing what? Opening accounts with NBB, right? So acquiring customers in the most efficient way possible. So when we talk about efficiency, what do we mean by that?
Cost effective.
Very good. What else? Okay, what else?
Less time.
Time, yes. So you're talking about time. So it's the least amount of time, right? The most cost effective, the least amount of time to get your customers. These are the kind of the key and really most important things over here. And then what's the last point that we're at, what we're talking about? What is it? Data. What do we mean by data? Okay, what kind of information? Analytics. So all of the information that is around us. So these are the kind of three kind of key pillars of growth hacking. Now, this whole subject, right? I don't think that you taught this in your universities. I would be impressed if they did. They might have, right? But this is something which is relatively new as a thought process. And honestly speaking, looking at content that's available online, I was not really able to find somewhere which has put this all together and packaged it in this way. So this is why I've put together this deck to kind of try to explain, to show all of you how this thought process is. So fundamentally, what does this mean? Because okay. So what does this mean? This means it's links between the marketing efforts and the sales. So the marketing efforts and sales have never been so close together. So we've always had a marketing team, which kind of sits by itself as a department within the organization, which does these marketing campaigns, and they go out and they yell and they make all of these big fuss, right? And then you have a sales team on the other end, which are making the sales. And right now, through using the growth hacking techniques, the link between the two kind of teams have become a lot closer, right? And the abundance of data, because we have a lot of data right now, what it means is that anything that the marketing team are doing, it's very easy to track what's going on in the market, measure, and then respond to the efforts. Okay, and then what this means is that whenever you're launching a new kind of marketing campaign, right, it means that there's a lower cost for your marketing, but at the same time you have an improved return on investment. If you kind of think about it, we'll get into a little bit in more details on this, but if you think about what we mean here, we're talking about instead of having traditional billboards online, like outside, where the amount of data that you can have is very little, right? Well, I'm talking like a billboard on outside. What can you tell? What kind of data can you measure? First one.
It's limited.
What are they?
There's not much you could put into.
Okay, but what the data that you can measure? What can you measure?
You don't know if the customers actually come in because of the billboard or because of the house.
Yes. What else do you know? That's a very good point. What else? And حاطين assign job avenues على الكبار. What do we know? ممكن يشوفها يمكن ما يشوفها. But what do they use when they market these? What do they say? They say this billboard, 50,000 cars pass in front of it every day. Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, 50,000 cars pass. Okay, so a lot of people might see it, maybe. How many actually see it? We don't know, right? If I put one ad today on that billboard and then I change it tomorrow, do I know which ad was better? Do you know? Yes or no? You wouldn't know. Is it? Would you know the difference? Which ad would be more successful?
I think maybe on the day of.
No, but how would you know if one was more successful than another? You wouldn't know. Because primarily what's happening is that there's no data that you're capturing. What about if you did an Instagram ad? What kind of tracking can you do?
You can see who saw the ad, who actually clicked on the ad, who
clicked on the ad.
Yeah.
They give you the number, right?
So they give you the number of people who viewed it, the number of people who clicked it, and then they can get the responses of it, right? So what do we mean by saying here we track, we measure, and then we respond? What we mean by this is, I'll give you as an example. You go and you take a session, for instance, you do you're running a marketing campaign. Give me an idea of the business, an online business. And anyone that you guys are working with. Let's say, for instance, you're selling cupcakes online on Instagram, right? So you do your first ad, you post it online. A traditional way of doing it is you're just going to put one ad, and then you're going to wait 1 week. Say you have 100 BD, right? You put 100 BD on the ad, you put it online, great. You get some responses, that's fantastic. And then you just leave it and you walk away. What's the problem with that? How do you know that ad? How do you know that ad gave you the best response? The problem with it is that you have nothing that you can measure it against. Is it? Let's take another scenario. Your same kind of ad that you're running, right? You split it into 3 ads. You have one which is just a picture of the cupcake, right? You have one which is one of you guys like eating the cupcake and saying, it's delicious, whether it's a video. And the other one is an infographic, okay? You put 10 dinars budget for each one of those 3 ads, and you run those ads for 1 week. Okay, you run them, you launch them, and you run them on for 1 week. Okay, they run for 1 week. At the end of the week, what do? You go, you check, you compare. So you launched, then you start to track what's happening between, then you measure what's the outcomes are. So the one where it's just a static post gets 50 views, and then one where somebody's eating it and he's enjoying it or whatever, it looks disgusting, they only get 2 views, right, or 2 clicks. Like nobody wants to buy it. And the one which is an infographic doesn't make any sense, so they get nothing, right? So you find out that your picture did 5 times better than the video and whatever. So now you had 100 budget. You spent 30 already for your test. What do you do with another 70? You target the static photo. So you only take the rest of the remaining budget and you slam it into that one that you know is the most successful. And then if you compare, if you were just blindly going out without any data and you're putting evenly among the 3 advertisements, you would have gotten significantly less feedback than what you've got by doing this whole kind of process of targeting specifically. Does this make sense to you guys? Do you guys understand what we mean by
I know.
it's about not just not starting to digital ads or whatever, that's fine, but how do you make the most of it? How do you leverage it? This is, I think, is going to be to a lot of what we talk about. And this is just an example, one example of how you can do a test. I use the example of Instagram and whatever because it's the simplest one to kind of understand, but there's a whole host of different things which I'm going to go through. So just a couple of things that we need to talk about, I guess, is first of all, understanding virality. So what does it mean when something goes viral? Okay, good. There's a demand, there's interest, suddenly everything is kind of moving on very quickly, right? So predominantly you can split those two to 2 kind of types of virality. So we have inherent and then artificial, right? So inherent virality, basically what it's talking about is the way that it is designed. It is forcing things to move very quickly. I'll give you an example of that. For example, benefit pay. When is the first time you heard about benefit pay? Give me like an example. My first time when I was heard it, when somebody asked me, can I pay you with benefit pay? And then you're like, what the hell is that? What the hell is that? I was like, then this is an app, whatever that they can do, and you can do it. And because it's great, it's fantastic. And then you start pushing other people to start using it. It's the similar situation that you have when you It's a similar situation that you have, for example, escrow accounts. شنو قلنا احنا about if a buyer sending somebody else, or sorry, a seller is sending somebody else the QR code, and then you're asking them to go and they click on the link to download the app. You're building it into the design that you're getting more people to kind of join that. That is like inherent. Artificial reality means when you pay money to get the additional attention. What do we mean by that? We mean like putting money into ads, just like raw advertisements, raw whatever. And if benefits kept on ينزلون دعايات, download benefits pay, download benefits pay. That is artificial reality. But do you guys understand the difference between the two? Which one do you think is better?
Definitely.
You guys agree? You wanna? The inherent one. Because if you build it into the system, the way that the actual thing works, it doesn't cost you anything and it continues to grow. And that's why apps like هلا السلام حياكم سحبوا كراسي تقدرون تسحبون هنا في 3 كراسي لازم تكلم العمل وايد احسن So yeah, so these are the two different kinds. And then the last kind, or these are the main kinds. The last kind is the word of mouth. And word of mouth generally happens mid-term. When does somebody go and recommend something through word of mouth? After they've tried it, if they don't like it, they won't do it. If it just meets your criteria, I mean, if you asked for a bottle of water and you got a bottle of water which is just normal, but I wouldn't know this is what you recommend it. So for something to become, so that you get word of mouth, and they will go out and proactively go and start to sell what you're trying to run. It has to be at a level where you exceeded their expectations. But when you use benefits for the first time, benefits paid, and it was so easy when you put your friend's number and then you suddenly sent them money, that because of that kind of good experience, that's what forced you to go out and tell people and proactively push for it. Okay. Now, another kind of, I promise you, we're almost done with the boring stuff. But the second kind of thing that I want you guys to understand is experimentation. Right? So what do we mean by experimentation? I already talked about experimentation briefly with the example that I used about Instagram, but using multiple and running. But on a high level, what you're looking at are these kind of 5 things. So evaluate your current marketing initiatives. Understand what are you guys doing within that space. Set achievable goals. So have the exact goal in mind. And I want 10,000 clicks. I expect to get 3,000 clicks or whatever it is, or purchases or whatever it is. Plan experiments to test your hypothesis. So this means, okay, I will experiment on posting an Instagram post with a video or without a video or just a picture or just text. That is like planning your experiment. That's how you test out if something works or not. And I'll give you more examples as we move on to the next slides so that you have an idea. Let it run. Do the actual campaign, run the campaign. And then the most important part is at the end. Document your winning results and share them with your team. So understand, okay, this really was super successful or this wasn't successful, and then share it. And there's so many different ways that you can do this. You can do it even like if you want to do an event to promote your for instance, application, you do the event and you say, okay, I expect that after I do my event, I'm going to get 1,000 downloads. And then you go in the next day and you only get 30. Are you going to do an event again? But because you set the expectations beforehand, and you set the budgets around the expectations, you know what to expect out of the whole kind of process. So this is just generally understanding the experimentation. Now, what I want to talk about, and then I'll go into more details about each of these, is what are the different stages of customers that you have, right? So there's like 4 kind of main different stages of your customers. I will go through each one of them one by one. The first stage is acquisition, right? Which means familiarizing your markets to your product. What it basically means is just that people know that you exist in the world, right? They're not your customers, they don't use you yet, whatever. It just means that they know who you are, right? You guys all know who Nike is, but maybe not everybody has purchased something from them, just as an example. The second, yeah, so this is the first one. I'll talk high level, then we're going to go into the individual one. So the first is, okay, they know about who you are, that you exist in the world. Then you go to activation, which is the second stage, which is getting your markets to become your customers, right? So they know who NBB is, and then activation is they set up an account. So they set up an account with NBB. Doesn't mean that NBB has made profit from them. Doesn't mean that they made profit from them, but they have an account. So they took one step closer. The next is revenue. So that's when you start actually making money, right? So you do your first transaction and you get your first, NBB sells their first loan or does their first deposit or whatever it is, okay? That's great. Then the last step is retention. That you come back and they spend again. They spend again, and then they spend again, right? And it's proven that by keeping people at retention, it is 7 times cheaper to retain people than to gain new people to come in. So you have to do a lot to make sure that you keep your retention. So you keep your existing customers kind of paying and going forward. Now, I've talked about kind of the theoretical part in the beginning, right? What the ideas are and so on. And I've talked about here what are the stages of your customers. But what I haven't yet talked about is what can you do at each stage to engage with your customers, to increase it and to improve it. So I put together a series of basically tools which are being used right now by the markets to be able to improve that kind of section. You guys have questions at this point so far? Okay. So high level, if you look at this, these are only examples of the most common tools, but it's not everything. So you have content, the ones with asterisks, I'm going to go into more detail so you have a better example of what they are. You have content building, search engine optimization, remarketing, onboarding experience, social media, influencers, contacts, hijacked distributions, APIs, and social sharing. Maybe I'll just jump directly into some of the examples, or are there any over here which stand out as some things which obviously?
Using APIs for our viewers.
Okay.
Onboarding experience.
Okay, good onboarding experience. What else?
Social media.
Social media, obviously. Does anybody not have social media? Social media? No?
That would be scary.
I'll be interested. Maybe more. يمكن أحدث against
Personal choice.
being social media.
No judgment zone here.
So the first example I said is content building. This is sometimes you see this. Basically, what it means is, okay, you are providing some sort of skills. For example, the girls that are doing the financial literacy examples. Okay? What if you built the content about financial literacy, right? And then you put it out in the public and you get people to come and join you through the content that you've already made public. I'll give you some examples of where this has been done before. So some people, for instance, if they are, let's say, let's take an example of like somebody who has like a makeup line, right? And then there you go, they put a YouTube channel and they show how they put on the makeup and how you're supposed to use it and what's the advantage of it and how good it is. It's on YouTube. It doesn't give them direct revenue. So what does it mean? It means that when somebody goes and sees that there, they're going to go to them afterwards, right? So you're building content, so it's educational, so there's some kind of a knowledge aspect to it, but it leads towards them becoming customers. And then is that clear ولا? So you guys get like يعني you build تشوفون على اشياء وايد حتى مثلا حق المقاولين في البحرين وايد منهم عندهم انستغرام يتكلمون يسوون لك يقول لك هذه الطريقه غلط انك تسوي هالشيء لازم تسوي كذي احسن لا فلو واحد يقول اوه ترى المقاول ذي ذكي هذا اذا ببني بيت بروح بسوي عنده لانه هو يعرف يعني the right way of doing it. You can always look at how, by the way, not all of the examples are applicable to all of the businesses. Another thing is remarketing. What does this mean? There is a way of basically if you use Google, right? You can do some amazing things when it comes to the advertisements. One thing I'll tell you is just as an experience. So this is a real example. I was online looking at professional chef sites from Japan on a completely different website, okay? On a proper Japanese website. I went the next day, opened up CNN because I was reading the news, right? As I was pulling up the news from CNN, right? I got this ad that came. This is the article that we were reading. This ad came up with the exact same thing or the same subject matter that I was looking at before. Has this happened to any of you guys before? What do you guys think once you see an ad which is targeted, which shows the exact same thing that you were looking at? What suddenly do you think?
Other than creepy, it's
Yeah, okay, it's creepy, but besides that, after creepy, what do you feel? It's beneficial, right? So it says visitors are 70% more likely to click on an ad if it shows something which they've already visited in the web. So it's extremely effective, right? This whole thing is very, very effective. And then, they're 70% more likely to convert, they're 10 times more likely to click on it. So basically, it's just a much more effective way. What else it does is that if you're a small business and then you do this, your business then looks like it's much, much larger than it is in real life. لأن بتقول إنه oh wow يعني هذه شو اسمه Mona's Bakery is now يطلع لي لما أفتح CNN these guys must be a multinational kind of massive kind of company, right? But in reality, it's just because they know that you're already looking at that from before, and so they've targeted you very effectively. How many people have seen this before? Bitilko, Zain, asking you guys for mention 10 friends, ask for whatever, and then you guys you see these competitions. Why are they doing this?
To get people to follow them.
Get people to follow them. What else? Interaction, right? Okay. What ends up happening in this? Every time that they post one of these, what ends up happening? They get more interaction. They get thousands and thousands and thousands of new followers. Okay. ايش كذا نكلفهم؟ 300 دينار. زين؟ or whatever, 450. أصلك يعني if they paid 400 dinars to get 1,000, 2,000 new followers, would they be able to? No way in hell. Right? No way in hell they would be able to. So this is why they do this. Because this is so efficient, so damn efficient, right? It's getting new followers, especially if you have a strong existing follower base, that there's nothing that can compare to it. Like it is right on, as long as it's built the right way, that you ask the right things, that the requirements. شوف شنو هذه like the ساعات the requirements up to tag like 10 friends, which is ridiculous, and that's a lot of people, or 3 friends or 5 friends, that spreads very quickly. So this is kind of the main ideas. Maybe they do this with other things like giveaways or hashtag contests. So I'm sure there's lots of different ways that this appears, but it's the idea is the same. This one's a little bit more confusing. It's a little bit more challenging, but it's a very smart way of doing this. So when Airbnb first started, then the major kind of big app that people were using for posting stuff wasn't obviously Airbnb, right? It was Craigslist. So people would post things on Craigslist. شنو سووا Airbnb؟ يو كتبوا كود الويب سايت مالهم، كل مرة هم يحطون property جديد أو مكان يعني جديد حق الإيجار في Airbnb، automatically it creates a post that a bot goes and posts it on Craigslist. يعني it goes to their competitor and it posts the same ad on Craigslist on their ad. But the link links you back to their website. So what are they doing? It's kind of you go to a party and then you tell everybody, come out of the party, come to my party that's next door. You're basically scooping people from your competitor or you're moving them over. Literally talking to two shops that are right in front of each other. You go into one shop and you ask people, your place, which is next door. That's literally what it is. Now, a lot of more sophisticated websites have been trying to kind of block this and find different ways of doing it, but it's still available. And there's still, if you're very smart about it, you can find ways where you can do this, which is like, it's called hijacked distribution. Any questions? It is, there's nothing illegal about it, right? Maybe they find it unethical, maybe, yes. Some people might find it unethical, but at the same time, it's competition, right? So some people might find the ads that Spitilico and STC do about each other unethical, right? Then it's direct competition, right? قاعدين يحاربون بعض. But at the end of the day, this is what you're targeting. So you have to be smart about the way that you target. Next thing, this is also not always relevant to everybody, but it is somehow when you open up an app, when you open up a new app. So for instance, the first time you open Snapchat, أول مرة تنزل ربعكم قالوا لكم إنه oh Snapchat is the new thing, TikTok is the new thing. When you go on the app, what's the first thing it asks you to do? Connect to your contacts so that you can bring all of your friends on to your contacts, that you can add them. So first thing is you create your community, and of Rabba.com, whatever you have your community on. But then also what it does is it gives you the option to share with the people who are not on or your friends to invite them to come on. Now, this yes and no depends on what's happening for the fitness app, right? So for instance, if you do a leaderboard system, right? This is something which you can implement, right? So ask your friends, share with your friends to join, or oh, you hit your targets today, share it with 10 of your friends so that they can also see. And then they can
That's what the referral code is for.
Yeah. I mean, that's one way of doing it. I'll talk about referral codes back in a second. But yeah. So this we all talked about. What we're talking about is the first part, which is just like the activation, familiarization. Sorry, the acquisition. And we're talking about activation, how to make people your customers. Any of these makes sense because you know these are very ugly things. Sometimes it's this. So, building a great product, value pricing, scarcity tactics, and community building. We're going to look at the seconds too. Value pricing, what does this mean? Basically, what it means is make sure that if you have a product which is going out on the market, that you price it in a way which is reflectant of like really, really high value, so that it makes a lot of sense for the customer, that it doesn't make sense for them not to use it. An example of this is Netflix, right? So you're paying like what, $15 a month a month, but what are you getting? You're getting endless hours of content and whatever, right? Who has a Netflix membership subscription, or with a family or a friend has a Netflix subscription? يعني تفرق معكم Netflix؟ صدق ما بتستخدموا Netflix؟ Okay. That's unusual. We don't usually have that case. Most is okay. How about OSN or Shahid or one of these other ones? Okay, good for you. I wish I could do that. Let's okay. Basically, when you have for the people who have subscriptions, if the price of Netflix went up $2, would you unsubscribe?
That's right.
$3.
I really want to watch my shows.
Exactly, right? So you'd be willing to pay, right? And when you achieve that level of kind of value for your hobby and you price it in such a way where it just doesn't make sense, people never consider not doing it. If they are already hooked into the system, they will not consider unsubscribing or doing this. Scarcity tactics, right? You guys all use bookings.com or one of these websites in Gabble to make a booking. Yeah. Look at the 3 boxes that are handed up on the side. What does the first one say? What does the first one say? Okay, what does that tell you? Book 12 times for your dates in the last 6 hours.
So it's telling you to hurry before it runs out.
And it's telling you that the thing is moving. يعني انك قاعد يصير في حركة. يعني this is not a product اللي موجود. البنات اللي تروحون تشترون مثلا you're going to go and you're going to buy a bag, a nice bag. Yeah? What do they always tell you? I tell نحن بنات ترى هذه عين بيخلص. ترى هذه ما بيتم هذه وهذه لاست بيس وهذا واحد خلاص انت حبي يفوتكم ترى هذه تبي وراك او هي قاعد تطول على الشنطه نفسها فراح تحكي رايدها لا ابي الحين ما بنطر انا الحين باخذ قبل ما ترجع زين. What's the second one say? risk free لا تحاتي بالاخذ اعطوا لكم يعني يسهلون لكم الامور زين. in green, risk free, easy, you can back out, you can cancel, so you're not locked in, so you can get the great price but you don't have to worry. فشالوا another boundary ان اخاف الناس شري بعدين عقبت وحق بس لا الحين they've made you kind of a lot more relaxed. So what does the last one say? Why would they? إذا هم already الحين قاعدين يبيعون لك شيء ليش بيبون طاري شيء يبين ينباع؟
عشان أحسن
What else?
to visit the website next time.
لا بس ليش بالضبط? Why would they tell you that هاي already طاف؟
To book another hotel immediately.
قاعد لهم
بيحسون الناس كلها قاعد تاخذ.
لا عشان يحسسونك ان اذا انت الحين this opportunity موجود. لا اذا انت نطرت زياده بيصير نفس ذي ان it will sell out. يعني it will also sell out. Again يعني this is all psychological. The way that everything is put here is very psychological. The way انك قاعدين pushing you and you have to go and make the transition or make the transaction as quickly as possible to Although I think the guys are enjoying the back of your head a lot. That's insane. The last kind of section that we're looking at is profit from your customers and then retention from your customers. So profit from your customers, so retention and referrals toolbox. Some of these look familiar. I think some of them look very familiar to some of you guys. So we're going to stick on to a few of them. Gamification. I don't think I need to explain this to everybody because I know that a lot of you guys are looking at this already for your kind of contributions to the NBB app. But primarily for those who are not familiar with gamification, basically what's it's doing is it's making your interaction with the application almost like a game, right? And it is encouraging you, because by making it like a game, it's encouraging you to come back and use the application more and more and more and more and get back. Because as you use it more often with an application that doesn't have any gamification, it doesn't reward you for using the application. And if I keep on opening Instagram, it doesn't say congratulations, here's 10 dinars for using Instagram. It doesn't. But if it tells you that you progressed, and مثلا some Foursquare, maybe you guys are too young for that. You become mayor of places based off of where you get too young. Anyways, so that was like I think the first app that really did stuff. In Google, right? They want you to submit more photos of places because when people search for places online, they want to see that, oh, this is how it looks like. They want reviews and so on. And so they encourage people to do reviews and whatever to get promoted from novice to whatever, to the different stages. Even though, and this is proven, which is crazy, there's no reward, right? Even if you become an expert photographer for Google, it's not like they're going to give you anything. It's not like you're going to get anything. It's just that people suddenly, they almost feel like it's a game and they challenge themselves. So every time they go to someone new, they take pictures of it. And that's how I wanted someone to search for Google Maps. So suddenly you see the pictures. It's from a few people who are very excited about this thing and feature, and they contribute their own stuff. I think that's clear. The last thing is, I think, winning with service, right? What do we mean by, or actually it's not the last, the second to last, winning with service. What it basically means is that when customer service is so good, right, that it starts to build its own reputation for itself. And للأسف in Bahrain, in Khalij in general, we're not that big on customer service, right? But there are other places which their kind of main focus or their main differentiator between themselves and their competitors is their customer service. So there's a really popular, well-known, massive shoe company in the US called Zappos, right? And they go beyond what is expected of somebody that sells you shoes online, right? Give you some examples. So they sent flowers to a woman who ordered 6 pairs of shoes due to health problems because they found out through the customer service, right? Because they were talking to her in the customer service that she was going through like a rough time and whatever, and so she bought shoes and so on because I don't know, she had some issues with her feet, or I don't know, whatever it is. But they went above and beyond. They sent her flowers. One of them, the shoes that they wanted, it didn't get delivered. So they went to a competitor and they bought the shoes. They went and they delivered it to her. They could have just said, no, we don't have the shoes. But if they said to a very good customer that we don't have the shoes, and then the customer went and they got an experience from a competitor, then the next time around, they're going to go back to the competitor and they will have lost the customer. So they went out of their way to get the shoes and they started with the customer. This company actually also holds the record for the longest customer service call that was in the US, which was 10 hours and 29 minutes. I don't know what somebody will talk about shoes for 10 hours and 29 minutes, okay? And it's definitely not my hobby, but apparently, that is possible. Anyways, this is, they don't have to do this, but when you give your customer really good experience, then they talk about it and then they want to keep it. And then they go and they tell their friends about it. And they say, you know what, these guys did, in a great way. I'll give you an example, my personal example of how this has happened for me. I went to a restaurant once. تعرفون علي David Strafer, David crazy علي. أول ما فتح أول فرع اللي في الرفوع. أول ما رحنا هناك they came in, they were closing. It was early, but the owner was there and he was closing. And he told me that, oh, I'm really sorry, but we have a really big event, so I have to send all of my staff to the Hadif. I can't keep this branch open. I don't have enough staff members. And he said, next time you come, make sure that you let me in. Yeah, okay, fine. Other week later, came with all our friends. He came and saw me, and then he recognized. He said, oh, yes, you came last week to me. Sit down. Then he came, and then he went, and he said, don't look at the menu. And then he went and he put so much food. Like he filled the table with food, and he gave us amazing service and so on. And he absolutely refused to take any money for it, right? Now, he did that once, right? For me, a very long time ago, right? And now it's been years later, but because of that good customer experience, I've told it now to 15 people that are like sitting here, right? So you get how that passes on, right? A good customer experience goes on to people. The last example is the members' referral incentives, right? Do you guys remember Carriage for the brief time that they were there, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys remember when they first started, they had this referral program. So when you go and you refer a friend to Carriage to make their order, they get a dinar and you get 2 dinars when the first order is made, right? And so what does that mean? That means that you're going to proactively push somebody to spread, right? To buy. And then also at the same time, you're getting something in return. So it actually encourages you and it encourages them because they're getting a voucher off of their food. Now, what does this cost to them in terms of the transaction and total to get a new customer? 3 BD, right? 3 BD guarantees them that they will get a transaction. They might, even if it's a big order, make that 3 BD back from the first order that they make. They might at least they'll get 2 BD, right? Or one BD. But they'll guarantee that they will get a transaction and they'll get the money. Right? So if you compare this to going all the way when you go back to the activation and whatever, they are focusing the 3 BD متى جنيه تحت. زين؟ لو حطوها 3 دينار فوق هناك for the acquisition, will it guarantee them a customer? Probably not. If they spent the 3 BD on acquisition, الأشياء اللي فوق, unlikely that they'll get them a customer. But because they spent it down here, all the way at the end, and guaranteeing the money, they're guaranteed a customer. Except if it doesn't work with somebody, then they don't pay anything. So I think that is it from my side. I hope that I did not worry you guys too much, and I hope that this was something a little bit different than what you are used to. I don't know if you have any questions or comments or anything about it. What do you guys think? Did you guys learn anything? Hopefully something.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Not perfect. So I mean, these are all kind of things just to keep in the back of your head, right? So whenever you're doing something, think about this. Think about how am I going to reach my customers? How am I going to convert my customers? And it's not all social media posts. It's not all about Instagram posts, right? Do this. I mean, try these different experiments out. And maybe the last thing I can say is when you're doing these experiments, if you keep track of what the effects are of each of these experiments, right, you can quickly be able to tell what makes the most sense for a business and what doesn't. So if I go through all of these, right, and I do, for instance, 1 month I focus it on one thing, and then the next month I focus on another, and so on. I can say, okay, I put 100 BD on each one of these kind of tests, but if I did a contest, I got really good results, but then when I did social whatever sharing, whatever, I got crappy results, right? You can immediately tell that, one is better than the other, and then in the future you can start adapting, not just the example and أعطيتكم في البداية an Instagram post and choosing which post to use, but then also which vehicle that you should use to go out. Good. Thank you guys.
Thank you.